I have two brief questions I'd like to ask, if I may.
Hi, welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone and you're watching The Daily Question. Today's question of the day: does the gender of our role models matter? Now, the reason I'm asking that question is because I've gone to the viewer mailbag and Kyle has sent me the following email. Hi Brendan, big fan of your videos. I really enjoy your insightful commentary on the issues. Thanks, Kyle. Very kind of you to say. I don't know how familiar you are with the current controversy regarding the TV show Doctor Who and the casting of a female, Jodie Whittaker, in the traditionally male-led role, but it sparked a heated debate that I'd love to hear your thoughts on. When the casting was first announced, former Doctor Who stars Peter Davison commented that boys had lost a role model, quote unquote, with the gender change to the main character. He was immediately attacked by social justice warriors and driven out of his public forum. Subsequently, Whittaker has commented more than once on how important she thinks it is for boys to look to women as role models as well. My question is this: do you consider gender to be important, or to be an important factor with regard to role models? And what do you think the potential consequences could be of forcibly replacing male role models with female ones, as we see happening in multiple fictional franchises at the moment? Thanks. Keep up the amazing work, Kyle. Thanks, Kyle, for your email. Here's a couple of my thoughts on this issue. First of all, I am not a Whovian. I don't claim to be a Whovian. I'm a guy who, particularly when I was younger, loved watching Doctor Who, but I'm not a Whovian. I'm not a diehard Who fan. I haven't watched every series, every episode, and particularly the newer stuff. It just hasn't been that appealing to me. I guess my tastes have changed a little bit, but I love Doctor Who from when I was a kid. It's sort of one of those favourite pastimes, I think, of a lot of people, particularly those of us who are science fiction fans. I do know about this controversy, and one thing I will say from what I know about this and what I've seen unfolding around this is Doctor Who is fast becoming a poster child for how not to do these sorts of things. If you want to do this type of thing where you introduce a female lead in a role that has traditionally been male, and they have a bit of a loophole here with the whole Time Lord thing that they can exploit to do this, what Doctor Who is showing though, this is not how you do this, and it's not just this change of direction from male to female lead, but it's also the fact that the other things that have gone on in the lead up to this, there's been a lot more of this sort of ideological imposition on the show, a lot more political imposition on the show, and it has been very ham-fisted and not particularly well thought out. And really it just comes across as little more than propagandizing or lecturing people or preaching from a sort of like a bully pulpit. It's not clever examination of issues. It's not a clever examination of you know, things that are going on in society. It's just effectively hectoring at people. But getting to your main question, does the gender of our role models matter? I believe absolutely it does. Now, that doesn't mean to say that men cannot be inspired by the heroic virtue that is displayed by females. In fact, for me personally, one of my personal heroes, if you like, is Sophie Scholl. Sophie Scholl was a real historical figure. She was executed by the Nazis at 21 years of age for peacefully resisting and speaking out against the evils of Nazism. I am hugely inspired by her courage. I'm hugely inspired by her faith and by the authentic love that she displayed through those events. However, it is also really important for me that I have, and I have had this, male role models throughout my life as well. And there's lots of ways in which I need masculinity role model to me. So first of all, it's really important to understand that masculinity is not something that a female can teach you. Masculinity, authentic masculinity, is something that can be called out of you by an approach or an encounter with an authentic femininity. But it's not something that a female can teach to you. A female can give you the theory of what masculinity should be and can certainly verbalize that, but you need to actually see it modeled. You need to see it lived out in the lives of other men. It's really, really important. And a big part of this is because as men, we have a different view on the world and how things should be to what females do. It's just the nature of things the way we are. Men and women are different. They see the world differently. We operate in the world differently. It's not a bad thing. It's a very good thing. We bring our complementary strengths and weaknesses to the world, and good things happen for society when male and female complementarity is present. It's not a competition or a fight between the two, or it's not an act of dominance one over the other. However, as men, what we need to see is we need to connect with other men, and we need to see them role modeling these things, because we instinctively, innately, we understand that we have a shared lived experience the masculine experience, and therefore we connect with that in a much deeper way, in a much more meaningful kind of way. And like I said, there's lots of ways we need to see that masculinity role modeled to us at different stages. And so, at the stage I'm at, I need to see good older fathers and husbands who are modeling, through their life experiences and through their lives, fatherhood of older children and a more established and experienced marital life. Because that's where I'm at now. I need to see men who are ahead of me in that journey who can role model good things to me as well. But in the earlier stages of my life, I needed to see something different. But that role modeling really does matter a lot. And in fact, I would suggest it's one of the big problems that we've got in society today is that effectively what we're doing is we are promoting feminine interests ahead of the well-being of males. And I think it's really important to understand this. And anytime you raise this point, you will get people who will accuse you of whinging and complaining. And the reason that people take this approach, I think, is because they have a very Marxist view of male-female relationships. And in Marxism, what you tend to do is you tend to reduce everything to a power struggle between different classes, an oppressed class and an oppressor class, and you see the world through this victimizer lens, and basically there's this idea that we have to have this revolution, this uprising where we throw off the shackles and seize power off the oppressor class. And so if your view of male-female relations is like that, then you are going to view males automatically as being in some sort of power class. And so even if females rise up and seize power off them, the tendency is still to think of males as being privileged. And so it doesn't really matter so much if they don't get it, or we don't focus on masculine well-being as much because, hey, they've got power and they'll be fine. But that's not how the world works, because that's not actually what's going on between males and females. That's not a healthy or true vision of reality of how the world actually is. And what this does is, and what it has actually resulted in now is, and I really worry about this, is for a lot of younger men, they are being left in the dirt. And I would argue that what you have is feminine causes that are being advanced at the expense of male well-being. And when people raise this issue, it's just scoffed at. And that's not a good thing at all. I would argue that we don't need another power struggle. We don't need to try and suggest that somehow it's about giving females power, and that's what we need role modelled here as strong females. No, I completely disagree with that. What I would suggest that we actually need role modelled in our society more than ever before is male-female complementarity, because that addresses all of the issues. Male-female complementarity is a view that respects the otherness of females. It's not about trying to dominate or do away with or put down the otherness, the uniqueness of what the feminine brings to the world. It's about respecting and elevating those differences and those unique gifts. But at the same time, it doesn't do that at the expense of men. What it also does is says that men have their own unique gifts that they bring to the world, and that the two are supposed to work together. And when they work together in this mutual self-giving love for the other, good things happen in society. And I would argue that's what we haven't got role modelled at the moment. And I would suggest that a lot of the problems that the more militant third and fourth wave feminists are desperately trying to address are not actually going to be addressed with this Marxist power struggle model at all. It's just going to end up breeding a whole lot of resentment or disconnected males who are just checking out from society and who are not interested, who view effectively what's happening in society as some form of oppression to them, regardless of whether it is or not. It's just not helping. So I think what we need more of is an authentic complementarity that's modelled. And that's about actually acknowledging first and foremost that there are differences between men and women, and that this shouldn't actually be about power, and that just imitating the things that males have done in the past is not automatically the same thing as advancing a good and positive and more enlightened and more flourishing society for females. It's about something more complex than that. So yeah, I think that I guess it's a roundabout way of saying that, yeah, absolutely, the gender of our role models does matter. It matters a lot, particularly for those younger men coming through. But it's not just about the gender, it's also about what those role models are modelling to them. Are they modelling an authentic masculinity? Because there's two extremes that they can fall into that are wrong. One is to model a very brutal and barbaric form of being a man in the world where you just dominate other people. It's all about violence and strength and shows of power over other people. So instead of self-giving, it's about dominating other people with your strength. The other extreme is to have this very feminized, emasculated version of masculinity, or effectively, I guess the ally you might call it, the whole idea that the more feminine a man becomes, the better he becomes as a man. Well, that's not a good role modelling either. Instead, what you need is an authentic masculinity which understands and accepts the gift of masculine strength and all the good things it brings to the world, but which also curbs the potential excesses by grounding it in the practice of virtue and by grounding it in the practice of self-giving, self-sacrificial love for others. And if your masculinity sits on that self-sacrificial love for others as its sort of prime bedrock, then your masculinity in the world is going to be a good and healthy thing, and it still gives you the scope to do all those dumb and crazy and wonderful things that us men do in the world that are different, and often have females aghast and thinking, what are you doing that for, you crazy bloke? But that's the way it's supposed to be, because we're often looking back the other way saying, what are you doing that for? Right? This is how the differences between male and females work. We bring these unique gifts and strengths to the world, and in order to compensate for any sort of domination or disrespect for the other, it should always be grounded in this mutual and self-sacrificial love, this outward-focused giving of my life. So it's not just about the gender of the role model, but it's also about what they're role modelling. As per usual, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if you like the content I'm creating and you'd like to see more of it, then please support me on PayPal or Patreon. There's a link for both in the video description below. That's right, I can hear my theme music too. I'll see you next week on The Daily Question.